Hello, everyone. It's me. Welcome back. Thank you for coming around. Alrighty, we got Luke chapter 23. And I said at the end of the last video that we were going to go over the birth of Jesus, and I lied. I didn't mean to lie, but it dawned on me, posted that video. I was like, oh yeah, the death and resurrection is in two separate chapters. And I have 2 Sundays left before Easter. Well, including Easter. So I was like, well, it's a surprise. We're going over the death of Jesus Christ today. Not a great thing by any means. Well, here's the weird part of talking about it. It is a great thing because it is. Okay. Jesus died on Good Friday. It's called Good Friday because that's the day that he died. And he paid for the sins. And so we're going to go over Good Friday, basically. But technically, if you're watching this day it came out, we are in accordance to the cycle of Jesus' death and resurrection. We are on the day that he entered Jerusalem at the start of Passover. And so going into this is after a week of Passover. This is the holy festival of the Jewish people, and uh, everyone's flocking to Jerusalem right now. Everyone's there. It is super crowded. It's super, party time. Everyone's doing their ceremonial sacrifices and all this stuff because of the Passover. It's the greatest holiday for them right now. And so right now, Jesus just entered Jerusalem then. Fun fact. But now we're going to fast forward 5 days and hit Good Friday, the death of Jesus Christ. Let's get on to it. All right. So, I didn't include the title. Oh, there is no title. That's why. So, then the whole assembly rose and led him off to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king." So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," and Jesus replied. More context in Luke 22. That was the capture of Jesus. That's post Judas selling Jesus out, getting the silver from the transaction, and saying, "Hey, yeah, he's over here, come get him." And so Jesus gets captured and brought to Pilate. Now, Pilate is a historically cruel man. We see from other accounts and other non-religious historian accounts of Pilate that he is a very brutal, I don't, senator, judge. I forget the exact title of Pilate. But we see that he's a brutal guy, and so people see that he's going to Pilate. They're like, "Yeehaw, can't wait." And so they come to him telling him lies. They're giving him crimes that he commits or he did not commit in favor of him getting axed by Pilate. And so he opposes payment of taxes to Caesar, and he claims to be the Messiah, a king. So they're basically trying to say, yeah, he's subverting Roman authority and all this. And so Pilate looked at him. "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus is like, "That's what you just said." And so next up, Pilate turns around. While Pilate is cruel, he's not stupid. Pilate announced to the chief priests in the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." But they insist. He stirs up the people over all Judah by his teaching. And he started in Galilee and he's come all the way here. On hearing this, Pilate asked the man if he was Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was only under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at the time. So Pilate he kind of sees through the lies of these chief priests. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm sure he has heard about Jesus prior because he's coming to Jerusalem and all that. He's like, okay, I know these people are just trying to kill this man. So he's like, fine. You're not from my jurisdiction. You're not from Jerusalem. Go back to the Galilean guy. And so he sends him back to Herod. Now Herod is this is the same guy. I think I talked about him last week or the week prior. Who is the same one who imprisoned John the Baptist and cut off his head and executed him. And Herod's a weird guy. But Pilate's like, okay, hands off. I don't care. Get this guy away from me. I'm not dealing with this right now. So then, Jesus arrives with Herod. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard, he had hoped to see him perform a sign of sort. He plied with him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there. Oh, big hard word. Vehemently? Accusing him. They rigorously accused him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him, dressing him in an elegant robe, and they sent him back to Pilate. That day Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. And so Jesus gets sent to Herod. And Herod is the same guy, again, John the Baptist, who kept John the Baptist in a prison and wanted to talk to John the Baptist. He was interested in what John the Baptist had to say. Not that he was wanting to convert or anything. It was more along the lines of, yeah, so some guy is supposed to come after you, and he's supposed to be great? Who's this guy? And it's a mockery. He's like, he's basically thinking John the Baptist a lunatic. And so this is, he gets to, Pilate sends Jesus to him, the guy that John the Baptist talks about all the time. And Herod's like, oh, happy day. I'm gonna have a chit chat with him. And he's like, oh yeah, you're the king of the Jews. Yeah, show me a sign. Show me, oh, you're powerful, oh God, whatever. Show me that. And so he's poking, he's prodding. And this is a sentiment that goes throughout 2 millennium of people saying, yeah, God, give me a sign. Prove to me. You're the king of the Jews. You're God. Prove to me that you're real. Prove to me with a sign. Prove me this. And he's poking and prodding, and Jesus is like, he's not giving him anything. He knows what Herod's doing. He just wants, he wants to see power. He wants to see all this. He doesn't want to actually believe. And so then they start mocking him. They start just ridiculing this guy. Jesus Christ. As exactly what we expected of Herod. So he sends Herod sends Pilate back Jesus. And so Herod and Pilate, in their mutual cruelty, become little besties. While they were previously, as we see, enemies. And so Herod has this use for Jesus. He's like, fine, send him back to Pilate, kill him, or whatever. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, you brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence, and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod. For he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him, and then release him. But the whole crowd shouted, away with this man, release Barabbas to us. Barabbas had been thrown in prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder. And so he gets all these chief priests and elders of the Jewish custom, and he's like, okay, you brought me this guy. You said all these accounts about him. You're wrong. I know you're wrong. Herod said you're wrong. He's fine. Sure. I'll punish him for you. I'll make sure he gets his dues. I'll make sure he gets flogged. And then you can just have him back. And then the Jewish priests are all, no. We don't want him. He keeps claiming to be our God. I don't want that. I don't want that guy. Give us Barabbas. Barabbas wants us power. And so we see immediately what the people at this time wanted out of a Messiah. They wanted someone to liberate them from Roman rule not from themselves, not from worldly rule, not from sin. Jesus came promising salvation. They wanted release from Roman authority. And so they want Barabbas for insurrection and for murder. And so Pilate is offering to give this prisoner back, which normally doesn't happen. That's kind of a weird thing to do, but we have to remember we're in the Passover. Jerusalem is bustling. It is crazy out there. There's so many people out there in this funk and in this mood of, you bring enough people together, you get mob mentality, they start talking, things start happening. And so, notoriously, there will be, not notoriously, that's the wrong word. Historically? Famously? I don't know. Historically is probably the right word. Of authorities trying to just appease these people before anything bad could happen. So they're like, okay, sure. Give him back a prisoner here. Look, I gave you Barabbas. Don't riot in my streets. Please. And so they're just trying to calm the people down. So that's why this prisoner handing off thing is happening again. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." For the third time he spoke to them. Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found him no grounds for the death penalty. Therefore, I will have him punished and then release him. And so the people want Jesus to die. They want Jesus gone because so many times he's claimed to be the Messiah, but they don't want that Messiah. They want liberation. So like, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. He can't be the real Messiah. Kill him. He's just claiming, kill him. So they're letting their eyes of what they think God should be cloud what God is. And so Pilate, again, bear in mind, he's advocating for Jesus' life. He's not doing this because he's a kind man. He's doing this because he is a good judge. He is making sure that he's got a clean record. He's like, okay, well, I'm not going to kill an innocent guy. But, once it comes to a prisoner, yeah, rip him a new one. So he's saying, like, yeah, I found him. No, what crime? What are you talking about? And we can see Pilate's cruelty still. He's still saying, yeah, he hasn't committed a crime. I'm still going to punish him. Now, whether that's because he has, like, an authority to uphold to maintain this kind of peace, or it is a further peace offering with the Jewish people saying, look, okay, yeah, you gave me this guy. Sure, I'll hit him for you. Maybe him taking a beating will satisfy you rather than killing him, because he just doesn't want to kill an innocent guy. And so they continue. But with loud shouts, they insistently demanded that he be crucified, and their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, and the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to their will. And so Pilate's like, fine. 3 times, I tried. You keep whining. You keep coming to me for Barabbas. You keep saying kill him. Fine. Fine. Get away from me. And so he's going to kill Jesus. And so, pretty good mirror right now of how we as mankind as a whole will treat God. We're like, okay, yeah, I want this image of God. I want him to be what I want him to be. I don't want him. And therefore I will reject him. I will let him die. To me. And so, in reality, a lot of us are just the Jewish people. Pharisees, chief priests, all these people constantly reject Jesus. And truth be told, we are no greater than any of them. As the soldiers led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way into the country, and put the cross on him, and made him carry it behind Jesus. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned and said to them, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, Blessed are the childless women whose wombs that never bore and breasts that never nursed. Then they will say to the mountains, Fall on us, and the hills, cover us. For if people do things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry? And so the sentence has been carried out. Jesus is on his way to be crucified. Very, very common form of execution in Rome. The Romans did not make crucifixion, but they made it effective. And so we'll see the effects of how they actually do it here. And actually, I think I'll just tell you later once we see more of the effects of what it means to crucify. But he's passing by these people, and Jesus still has a lot of followers in the multitude who comes after him and wants to hear him. So there's still people who do want to be with him. And some of these people, start weeping, and he's like, "Don't weep for me." Jesus already knows what has to be done. 2 chapters ago, or a chapter ago, we see that Jesus is stressing out and he's praying to God the Father. He's saying, if there's another way, please don't let this be the way. He doesn't want to suffer this. He doesn't want to have to go through all this. He will if he must. He will if it is the way. He will if God the Father deems it so. But he is stressing out. He knows what has to be done now, because he has prophesied this death 3 times before. And so he's accepted it at this point. He knows that this is the way it has to be. So he's saying, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, Blessed are the childless women and the wombs have never bore and the breasts have never nursed. So he's like, in the future, you will begin to see what happens when I am gone. You will see what this world is after you kill Jesus Christ, the Son of God. At the very bottom there, when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry? Many times he also mentions with his disciples, hey, why don't your disciples fast with you? Why aren't they holding up these customs or whatever? And he's like, okay, well, they're still with me. They can do that when I'm gone. There's no point in them doing it right now because I'll be gone. They can do it then. And so right now, everyone is with Jesus. Everyone is in his presence. What's going to happen when Jesus is gone? How are we going to act when the world is allowed to act in the way the world wants to again? So, now, 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, or Calvary, they crucified him there along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they divided up his clothes by lots. So, crucifixion happens. The whole process of that is Jesus gets, stripped of his clothes, flogged, taking a whip with metal bits or bone or whatever, and hitting the back of whoever's getting flogged over and over and over again until your back becomes bare, your back becomes raw, strips of your flesh start coming out. And you are covered in your own gore and viscera and blood. And then your clothes are put back on. And then, as they carry him, or as they make him go over to where he's going to be crucified, they take off his clothes again. So those pieces of linen that were covering his back and allowing it to clot, they reopen all those wounds. That's horrible. They beat this man. They allow him some temporary relief by putting first of all, by putting dry, dirty clothes on him, infecting those wounds, getting the grains in the raw flesh, and then ripping that off again. And then they put it against this wooden cross that's probably got splinters and the rough, uneven, dry texture of the wood. So now his back has to face to that. When you get crucified, obviously, we know The nails go through your wrists and the nails go through your feet. And so now you're forced there, punctured on 4 counts, on this cross, wood on your back, on your bare flesh back. But that's not what kills you. What kills you is the fact that the weight of your body against your lungs starts suffocating you. And so you have to push up on the wounds of your feet in order to get a little glimpse of breath into you. And so Jesus is getting crucified, and all of this beating, all this cruelty, all this awfulness. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Or, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Even in his most brutalized form, he's saying, they don't know. This is the Son of God right now. Angels are seeing this. All of heaven. Eyes are turned to Jesus. And he's saying, forgive them. They do not know what they do. They don't know that they're murdering the Son of Christ right now. Or the Son of God right now. So even in the most form of brutality, he is still advocating for the forgiveness of these people. As we can expect from Jesus, as we have seen these past many weeks, how loving and kind he is. Then the people stood watching. Even the rulers sneered at him. They said, he saved others, let him save himself, if he's God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, if you're the king of the Jews, save yourself. And there was a written notice above him which read, this is the king of the Jews. Now in another gospel, it does a little bit more detail on the sign. It says it was written in Greek, Hebrew, and Latin. There it is. And it was written by Pilate. And so this is still a derogatory thing. This is derogatory to both Jesus, but also derogatory to all of the Jewish people. And some of the chief priests were like, hey, Pilate, can you rewrite that? And Pilate's like, I have written what I have written. Do not question me. And so this is, hey, look at this mutilated, absolutely scorned man. This is your king. This is the king of the Jews. Look how powerful he claimed to be, and look how little he is now. And you see, this is what we do to the king of the Jews. You know, keep the Jews way beneath us. All that kind of thing. So Pilate still means to be demeaning. As we see with everyone else. Even as Jesus is being murdered and slowly tortured, basically, everyone's mocking him. It's like, oh, let him save himself. You know, he's supposed to be God. He can come down from there. As if that's not the entire purpose of him being up there. This is the extent of mankind's cruelty. This is awful. To somebody who has lived a total sinless life, who has not deserved any of this, who has constantly aided people, this is the kind of life you get. This is what the world offers. You can be perfect, and the world will hate you. Yowza. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we're getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. And then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. So left and right, we got criminals flanking Jesus on the cross. They're also being crucified, all suffering the same torturous execution method. And they start hurling. Or one starts hurling insults. And the other guy's, hey, wait. And you talk to Jesus, and he's like, please, remember me. Truly I tell you, today you'll be with me in paradise. I can so easily make the comparison to say that we are the criminals on the crosses next to him. We are suffering these agonizing slow deaths of the world and whatnot, or going into annihilation. And we can choose to be with the murdered God and say, "Oh yeah, you idiots, this is what you deserve, blah blah blah. You're supposed to do this, blah 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 blah. Prove yourself, do all this," as if he's not dying on the cross next to him. As if this criminal is not is not slowly waltzing towards his death as well. He's just hateful. And we see the other guy also dying, also being facing this horrible death, but pleading out, still saying, "Remember me." He's not saying, "Save me, help me, do this." He's just saying, "Remember me when you go back." And so Jesus answers him, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." That is a lovely little verse there. Because that, again, goes against the idea that you are saved through your works. You are simply saved through your faith and your belief in Jesus Christ. And yes, there's a lot of counter arguments. Oh, faith without works is dead. Works comes from faith, so you are saved from your faith. And I can say, I can make that comparison all day long, that we are these criminals, and that we can still choose to love God even though as we are all dying. But I want to really focus on the fact that all these people are suffering this hanging from these cross beams, having to push themselves up and get any level of breath into them. And so this one guy to his right is getting up and he's using his dying breaths to insult Christ, and this other one is using his dying breaths to just be remembered. And so what does Jesus do in his final dying breaths? He comforts the man on the cross next to him. Even in the midst of everything, he's trying to comfort his children. He's trying to comfort. What a guy. Am I right? These verses are great. It is so easy to read them. It's so much. I don't really have to explain too much for everyone to get the meaning of these. But I think we should just, sit with them for a while. That's why I've been yapping so long about very obvious things. The death of Jesus. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. For the sun stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And when he said this, he breathed his last. So this is the legit death of Jesus Christ. This is his final moment on the cross. And so this is a cool thing. This is a spectacular moment, first of all. In other Gospels, it does mention... do I have it in here, actually? No. Other Gospels, it's mentioned that, the sun stopped shining, and there's also an earthquake. And we have non-religious historical texts of Roman historians writing down, on this year, the fourth year of, I think it's the fourth year of the 202nd Olympiad, the sun stopped shining, and it was as if it was night, and there was an earthquake. Summed up. And so we have, all in all, we have non-religious texts agreeing with this. We have Roman texts agreeing with this statement, which falls over on this Passover day. And so in the final moment, I commit my hands into your spirit. And then he breathed his last. Also in other Gospels, we see breathing his last is the final word of, I can't say it in the actual original language, but it's translated to paid in full. And so Jesus dies, and the very, very last thing he says is, "It is paid in full." So Jesus dies, all sin is forgiven. No, I take it back. All sin's not forgiven. The payment for all sin is granted. You have to accept that payment. Your sin is not forgiven until you accept that it is forgiven and that you ask for that forgiveness. There we go. Clarified myself. But another really great thing that I love from this couple of verses, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. So this we have back in Leviticus and Numbers, the book of Leviticus and Numbers in the Old Testament, post the Israelites leaving of Egypt, the tabernacle. The tabernacle was a holy place, written or created with cloth and linen and all this, and gold and gilded. It was beautiful, super intricately detailed. You could build a tabernacle if you wanted to. And there was a curtain that separated the portion of the tabernacle that people could go into and the holy place. So the curtain of the temple was torn in two. The curtain that separated the holy place where only the tribe of Levi, the priest tribe, could go into and commune with God, and the people that everyone else could go into, was made into one room. So the holy place entered where everyone could go to. Therefore, you do not need someone to commune with God on your behalf. The curtain of the temple is torn to two. Jesus is your priest to commune to God the Father with. With his death, that was severed. You do not need someone else in order to speak to God on your behalf. You can commune directly. That's lovely. That is the direct connection between you and God the Father now. You don't need anyone else to do it for you. You don't need a priest. You don't need anyone like that. You don't need these rituals done for you. You are direct. The sacrifices that were previously had to made in the New Testament, paid for. Sacrifices of, the lamb and the ox and all these animals, burnt offerings and stuff. Jesus is that sacrifice. Everything that you have done has been paid with the blood of Christ. And you have to ask for it, and you have that ability. You do not need anyone else to do that. God the Father is within you. As at this moment that the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit or the sevenfold Spirit, whatever you want to say, is with you. You have been granted it by Jesus Christ. The centurion, seeing what had happened, praised God and said, "Surely this was a righteous man." When all the people who had gathered to witness saw the sight, but saw what took place, they beat their breasts and went away. But all those who knew him, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things. So the centurion, who has done many of these executions, sees this happen, sees the sun, feels the earthquake, sees his final moments, what he breathes out loud, and he says, "What have we done? We have done something so wrong. We have this was a righteous guy. This was an innocent man. This man was who he said he was. We've killed the Son of God." And so people mourn and they leave. Woof. The total realization of your utter sin. Even this completely this non-religious, not non-religious, but non-Christian centurion observes. What have we done wrong? So in the final moments of this chapter, the burial of Jesus. Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he himself, goodness, I can't read. And he himself was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down and wrapped it in linen cloth and placed in a tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one had been laid yet, and it was preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The women who had come from Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. They then went home and prepared spices and perfumes, but they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment. So this is taking Jesus down. Now, normally, a criminal on the cross would be left there to be eaten by animals, to rot, to be a symbol of this is what happens to you when you defy Rome. But Pilate allows it, because Pilate knew this was an innocent man. And so Jesus gets taken off the cross, and he is treated well, reclothed, placed into a grave that no one else is there. This Joseph, not Joseph, Jesus' father, or any other Joseph, this Joseph simply took Jesus out. He knew he was a righteous guy, gave him his own tomb. And so these women who saw them, who he had spoken to previously, there's a bunch of theories on who these women could be. I'm not going to go into that. Went home. They wanted to give a little bit more back unto Jesus, but they chose to respect the Sabbath. And so, what does that mean? He died on Friday. Saturday passed. That's when his body was taken down. They go back home. They rest on the Sabbath. Next up. Sabbath's on Saturday. So he dies on Friday. Sabbath's on Saturday. They're going to go back to him Sunday. What day is that? That's Easter. What day is that? That's next week. Wow. I'll see you next week. About the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So that is, all in all, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. That is the horrible murder that has happened. That is the trial, the injustice, the awful treatment. And even in his final moments, attempting to comfort. And the severing and the final payment of your sins, the severing of the distance between you and God the Father. That is the entire purpose of Jesus Christ. To shed the blood of God so that you may always be saved, should you accept it. As we saw Jesus countlessly talk about. And so, heavy chapter, necessary chapter, as Jesus himself accepted it. So thank you very much for coming, y'all. I hope you have a very great rest of your week, and I will see you on Easter. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.